Now, ever since I got a Nintendo Switch, well, Nintendo have become one of my favourite gaming companies, and today I wanted to spread the love of Nintendo and talk about essential Nintendo games that you should play. But I'm not alone in this one. I've asked content creator friends to join me in this video to recommend, well, essential Nintendo games that you should play. So without further ado, let's get cracking on, and I'll see you for my entry at the end.
Hello you chicken filleteers, I'm Pat from Frames and thank you to the wonderful Chicken Fillets himself for having me on to talk about an essential Nintendo Switch game you should have. Because quite frankly, this game is the most essential for the Switch, and that be Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. You can't go wrong with good old Mario. Even in his spin-off games, the plumber just always seems to deliver. Now, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is one of the best racing games you could ever play. It's simple, it's fun, it gets the job done. I've had so many moments with this game, whether it's playing with the younger nephew or friends. Heck, I played this game with strangers on a plane, and we had a bloody ball. It's a game that anyone at any age can pick up and play, and there's a certain amount of wonder to that. Also, beating your friends is like the most wonderful feeling you can get from Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Like, it's kinda like a drug, especially when you beat that one friend you just never want to lose to. The satisfaction is on a completely different level. It's super intoxicating. But enough about me getting off to beating my friends. The game itself is a certified banger. From its lovely visuals, incredible track design, and the sheer customization that is allowed to affect all the variables of your kart is incredible. They even have Mercedes karts in it, and that's bloody gas. Beating everyone in the new Mercedes is just so funny when you compare it to every other kart. You can even use the Mii characters as kart racers, and that adds a nice little personalized touch when racing. The controls are quite literally perfect in every way, and there's always a new experience if you try out all the karts, wheels and gliders that can drastically change the gameplay and can offer a unique way to play. Also, the music, it's cheery and you just love to hear it. You also have other modes to mess around in too if you so please, but I'm quite fond of sticking to just the racing. I feel it's the most fun of them all. I'd say most people watching have this game, that's how essential it is, and if you don't have it, why not? What's wrong with you? But joking aside, it's a must-have game. Now on to the next buddy to show you a game you need to play on your Switch.
Hey everybody, it's Public Enema. Thanks to Chicken Fillets for having me on the channel, and for my essential Nintendo game that everyone should play, I want to talk about a little 3DS title called Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia. Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia was developed by Intelligent Systems for the Nintendo 3DS back in 2017, and it's actually a remake of the old Famicom Fire Emblem Gaiden, which is the second game in the series. So why play Echoes? The strongest aspect for it is probably the story. You know, it's your typical war-torn country that Fire Emblem loves to set up, but what sets it apart is that there's two protagonists in this game, and they kind of go through the story in parallel. You have Alm, who's your more typical, I'm going to raise a rebellion and save the world from evil type, and then there's Celica, who's a swordsman, priestess type who wants to resolve things peacefully if at all possible, and it's really interesting to see them, you know, work in concert to try and solve what the problems of this world, even though they may come into conflict sometimes because of their different worldviews. They are two very strong protagonists. Celica is probably my favorite lord in the entire franchise. And, you know, maybe you played Fire Emblem Engage and the story was not engaging, and it turned you off. Echoes kind of fixes that. I think it's maybe a better choice for you if you love Fire Emblem, but Engage kind of turned you off. There's a lot of innovations in Echoes. It added town exploration where you can recruit characters and search for items for your army. There's fully explorable dungeons where you're actually freely moving around, where you can again search for treasure or also find Mila shrines to upgrade your units. And then it's also, I believe, the first Fire Emblem to have like a turn rewind mechanic that we would also see in like Three Houses and Engage. The character design is top notch. The animated scenes are fantastic, and the battle animations still hold up pretty well for this being a 2017 3DS release. One thing I appreciated about Fire Emblem Echoes is the fact that there's no harem stuff like you see in Awakening and Fates. I enjoyed pairing off characters and, creating super children units in Fire Emblem Awakening, spent a lot of time, min-maxing and finding the best combinations. It felt forced in Fates. It felt like, oh, this did really well in Awakening, let's work it into Fates too. I appreciated when I played Echoes that was gone, and I could just enjoy the story for what it was, and the side characters that you accumulate during this game are certainly strong enough to see it through to the end. Now, there are some cons. This is a remake of an older game, and they did not change the battle maps from the Famicom version, so they're a little dated, but a lot of the quality of life features they've added kind of help mitigate that to where maybe it's not as bad as it could be. But ultimately, Echoes has a great story, fantastic characters, and that Fire Emblem combat that can be so addicting that we all know and love. And if you haven't gotten around to playing it yet, I highly encourage you to do so. Push come to shove, it's probably my third favorite Fire Emblem. I would probably only rank it behind Three Houses and Path of Radiance. So give it a shot. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. So I know Fire Emblem Echoes isn't always the Fire Emblem game that people associate with the 3DS. Awakening was huge for the series and revived it in the West and is a big deal, but don't let Awakening and Fates overshadow Fire Emblem Echoes. It's a great game in its own right. It's got great story, beautiful art design, good music, and satisfying combat, and it's a must-play for any Nintendo fan. So don't take it from me, give it a shot, let me know what you think. Chicken Fillets, thanks for having me on the channel, and I can't wait to see what everybody else has up their sleeve, and I'll see you next time.
Hey, what's up, guys? And first up, John, thank you so much for the invite. I really do appreciate it. Thinking of Nintendo must-play games, several options ran through my head. But ultimately, I landed on a game that I enjoyed the most out of the recent offerings from Nintendo. And that game is Triangle Strategy. Triangle Strategy is a love letter to Final Fantasy Tactics. Whether you grew up playing Tactics, which just means you're old, like me, or you just heard about the greatness, Triangle Strategy brought new ideas, an awesome art style, and a killer soundtrack to the strategy RPG genre. Despite its rather, lackluster name. I mean, what, square begets a triangle? What'd they do? Lose a corner? Triangle Strategy hosts an incredible plot with meaningful choices and multiple routes, intriguing characters and believable motivations, an absolutely gorgeous art style. And then there's the combat. The tile-based, strategic turn-based combat is so good. Every unit has a unique weapon and fighting style with powers and moves that can be used to devastating effect if you know what you're doing. There are tons of characters in the game, 30 in all, and it can be pretty difficult choosing the ones you want to use. Not to mention, depending on your chosen route, roughly half of them won't even be available. I loved the political intrigue, the combat, the way the game respected your choices. Whole groups of characters can be left behind, and entire sides of the story can be left undiscovered. You use an environmental aid, well, you get a different story beat than the person who didn't. You choose blue, I choose red, well, completely different stories and characters. I know there are a ton of people who think that a game has to have action combat for them to enjoy it. But I would still argue that if you have any interest in good storytelling, in strategy of any kind, or in good characters, then Triangle Strategy is still a must play. So if we're talking essential games to play on a Nintendo system, for my money, Triangle Strategy has to be one of them.
Hey everybody, it's FemTrooper, and thank you to Chicken Fillets for having me on today, because I'm so excited to talk about an essential Nintendo game that you have to play. And what did I pick? Well, I chose the original Donkey Kong Country. I realize that everybody thinks about Super Mario when we talk about platformers, but when it comes to absolutely amazing gameplay, amazing music, amazing platforming, great characters, just overall everything is great. I mean, I'm sorry, but Donkey Kong Country nails it. And they're all good. So Donkey Kong Country 2 and 3 are high on my list. In fact, the third one may be my favorite. But I'm picking Donkey Kong Country, the original, because of what it did. It was so groundbreaking with graphics. I mean, the game still to this day looks gorgeous, and it used these pre-rendered 3D backgrounds that looked like out of this world. And now I realize when you look at it, it's nothing special, but you have to imagine back then seeing that was out of this world. It didn't look like the other games on the Super Nintendo. This was different, and this was really special. And I will never forget it. I loved playing these games. I just absolutely fell in love with the series. I loved all of them. They were my favorite games to play, in addition to many others, but I really, really like Donkey Kong Country. It's so great. It plays so well, and it's so creative and so imaginative. Like, some of these levels are really, really neat. Like, they're really fun. I mean, there were everything from levels where it was snowing and blizzarding and you couldn't see very well, to the obvious choice of the cool mine cart levels. Very intense. You know, you physically move when you play those levels. Like, they are insane. It's such a fun game, and I love everything about it. I love the actual characters. I love the Kong family, and I love the Kremlings as the villains. Donkey Kong Country is just great. It's great platforming, and the music, I mean, the soundtrack to all three, incredible. Like, something you would want to listen to outside of playing the game. Like, it's next level. So I can't recommend playing Donkey Kong Country enough. They are all on the Nintendo Switch Online, so it's not hard to play them these days. You don't need to set up a Super Nintendo. Go and play them, or replay them if it's been a while. If you're like, I'm due for a replay, go and play Donkey Kong Country. Thanks again, Chicken Fillets, for having me on your channel. Definitely check out my channel if you can. That would be most appreciated. And have fun with Donkey Kong Country, of course.
Yo, YouTube, what is good, bruv gang? What is good? And we are back with another collaboration video. Huge shout as always to John for having me be part of this. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. So when John had hit me up with the idea of this collaboration video being centered around essential Nintendo games you should play, I knew my pick was going to be super easy. A game that I have so many fond memories with, and a game I essentially grew up with. I feel an essential Nintendo game everybody should play is Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Blue Rescue Team. Whenever I talk about the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games, but Blue Rescue Team in particular, it's a game that really gets me emotional whenever I talk about it. The emotional investment I had towards the game as a 10-year-old kid back in 2006 is just something I do find hard to express at times. It's a game I went through emotional highs and lows with, and the memories I have with this game sometimes don't compare to other games I may have played around the same time. So I essentially grew up with the Pokemon series like most around my age, with my first being Pokemon Silver, and since then I never really looked back. I can remember fondly seeing the adverts on TV for Pokemon Mystery Dungeon every day when I watched cartoons around the winter of 2006, and I knew it was a guarantee I'd be able to get a new game for Christmas after seeing the game was scheduled to be released in November. I remember going to my mum and asking her if she could get me the game for Christmas, and honestly, I can say it was the best Christmas gift I probably ever received. Okay, enough with the emotional backstory. So the reason I do feel Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Blue Rescue Team is an essential Nintendo game you should play is mainly down to the game's emotionally gripping story. Now, you wouldn't expect a Pokemon game to really have a deep story, but without spoiling too much, the game starts you off by doing a personality test, essentially giving you a list of different scenarios where you will answer them through multiple choice answers. This in turn will determine what your starter Pokemon would be to start your journey. So the game is essentially centered around you, a human being dropped into the Pokemon world in the form of a Pokemon. You get a partner Pokemon who's your friend of your choosing to accompany you along your journey, and the emotional attachment and bond you build with your partner Pokemon along your journey is just something I felt was executed superbly throughout this game. The writing within the game is done so well throughout and really adds to the story and makes you feel a deep sense of your purpose and why you were even dropped into the Pokemon world to begin with. So aside from the beautifully well told story, the gameplay within Pokemon Mystery Dungeon is your standard Mystery Dungeon affair, with each floor having waves of enemies waiting around every corner, with the goal being to make it through each floor of the dungeon until you reach the end goal of getting out or defeating a boss. So for me personally, the gameplay loop is super fun, and with the addition of course of Pokemon moves, combat feels super fun to play, and the Mystery Dungeon aspect of the game always keeps you on edge since you always have to manage your items, power points and health, making for some really intense and addictive gameplay. I honestly could talk forever about Pokemon Mystery Dungeon as it's a game I hold very close to my heart. If you haven't checked out the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games, I honestly feel they are the best spin-off games in the series to date, and is most definitely an essential Nintendo game I feel everyone should play.
Listen up, Zeptograms. Azza the Ace here, and I'm here to tell all you amazing hectopascals why you should play the World Ends With You series. It's an incredible series filled with amazing soundtracks and awesome storytelling. These characters are even relatable, and you also have characters whose personalities are so likable. This game is so unique and underrated that it needs to be known. You are out of your vector if you don't pick up this game. Whilst it started on the DS, the final remix version on the Nintendo Switch has so much more and is so much better. This game has extra story content which is crucial to know before playing Neo The World Ends With You. I felt more comfortable using a Joy-Con compared to holding the DS, pressing buttons with my left hand and using the stars with my right hand. Besides using the Joy-Con though, you have the option to play it by touchscreen, but trust me, Joy-Con is better and pressing Y to recenter the cursor is your best friend. The first game is very nostalgic to those who were in their teens when this was released in 2008. This game tells an incredible story filled with quite a few twists and hidden secret reports that make you want to know hidden laws that the full story keeps a bit subtle. The post-game content is pretty awesome too, with Another Day being a parallel world with parody versions of the main characters with secret kernel lore, and A New Day that gives you one heck of a Zeta twist leading to the sequel. What is so iconic about this game is the music. It has a whole variety of genres from catchy tunes to pure epicness. Doesn't matter what track is playing, as soon as the beginning of that song starts, you will every now and then subconsciously start dancing, bopping your head banging, and even sing your heart out. The soundtrack is insanely incredible, yo. What's great about the final remix is that they added extra songs that are final mix versions, live versions, remixes, and even crossover versions such as Kingdom Mix and remixes from Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance. Finally, whilst Neo The World Ends With You is not exclusively on the Nintendo Switch, it's the sequel, and it's the sequel us TUI fans were waiting for after 13 years since the first game. It is an incredible sequel. Yet Square Enix marketing didn't promote the game well enough, so yet again, the series is an underrated game. It should be known, it should be played. Sheeple of YouTube, got some red hot news for ya. Welcome to the Reaper's game. Buy the What Ends With You series and post your copy on your socials. Tag Square Enix, say Azza the Ace sent you to hype up the franchise and bring on the noise, showing so much love and support for the series that deserves to continue. Now that's how you Zeta do it. Let's get this series trending. Thanks again for inviting me to this collab, Chicken Fillets. Until next time, this is Azza the Ace signing off. Zeta bye!
Hey guys, Upper Nimbus here. Big thanks to Chicken Fillets for inviting me for his Nintendo November collaboration, essential Nintendo games that we recommend. And thus, my choice for this video is none other than the legendary The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. Now this game is considered to be one of the greatest video games of all time. Going back to the era of the 1990s, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time was considered to be a feat in gaming advancement and technology. The very first 3D Legend of Zelda game on an epic scale and adventure. Being a child of the 90s, Ocarina of Time was there from the moment I was born. On a personal level, this game means so much to me, and the nostalgia is such a strong point as to why I keep revisiting the game. The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time follows a young boy by the name of Link. He's considered to be a fairy child of Kokiri Forest, but little do the inhabitants know that he is actually an outsider, as the Kokiri children don't actually age, however Link does. And the aging factor is a very important game mechanic in Ocarina of Time. One of the most revolutionary things that this game introduced was a time travel mechanic. We start the game as a child roughly around 10 years of age, and then when we approach near the midpoint of the game, that's when we cross over to 7 years into the future, becoming adult Link. It is up to you as the hero to rescue the Princess Zelda, awaken the 6 sacred sages, locked away in the far corners across the world of Hyrule, and combining their powers to take down Ganondorf once and for all. But what is it about Ocarina of Time which makes this game essential to play? Well, of course, one of the most obvious things is that it's critically acclaimed and is considered to be one of the greatest games of all time. Not only due to the fact that it was the first 3D Legend of Zelda game and because it introduced time travel mechanics, but this is also a Legend of Zelda game which has an easy enough story to understand and follow, and was fairly accessible to most children going back in the 90s. The freedom of adventure to explore the map of Hyrule and to uncover secret treasures and wonders within the world was truly complemented with the 3D gameplay to be able to explore those possibilities. So combining the elements of the fact that Ocarina of Time was the first 3D Zelda game, an interchangeable time traveling mechanic between past and future, and a storyline which places the game at the center of the franchise itself, these are the reasons why The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time makes the game such an important piece of gaming history, but also an essential Nintendo game that you should play. Chicken Fillets, thank you so much for having me on this collaboration. As always, I love working alongside you, my dude. And to everybody else within this video, I look forward to your decisions for an essential Nintendo game. So until the next time, everybody, Upper Nimbus is signing off.
What's up, guys? I'm Luca from Fato Gaming, and I'm also here to tell you about one essential Nintendo game you should add to your collection. A very small, very unknown game that you probably haven't heard of. And since this game basically flew under the radar, I thought I'd recommend it to you, and I really hope that more people will buy this. The game I'm talking about is The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. I mean, do I really need to say something about this? Not really, right? So thanks for having me, John. This was a lot of fun. No, I'm joking. Let me tell you why Tears of the Kingdom is an essential Nintendo game you should own. No other game I ever played gave me a better feeling of freedom than this. That's because the tools Tears of the Kingdom provides to explore its incredible world are designed brilliantly. The Ultra Hand allows you to move things, combine them, and experiment with pretty much everything you can see. The endless possibilities of what you can build with the Ultra Hand are mesmerizing and truly unbelievable. I had so much fun building stuff to explore places I never thought I could reach. That way, it almost felt like an addiction to explore Hyrule. The fantastic design of the world constantly lets you go, wait, what's that over there? I need to check that out. While the game takes place in the same world as Breath of the Wild, it actually expands to the sky and the underground. Also, since the Ultra Hand is such a powerful new ability, the overworld was redesigned so that you can fully live out your creativity. So exploration, sense of wonder, freedom, ways to get creative, all of that is top notch. And on top of that, the story is really engaging, comes with a few twists, and is surprisingly emotional. There's one part that took me off guard so hard that I will probably never forget it. And last but not least, combat feels insanely satisfying thanks to the possibility of combining pretty much everything with your weapon and endless ways to approach combat situations. Tears of the Kingdom is a masterpiece, and I would rate it a 10 out of 10 every day. It's a game you can relax with, have an unforgettable adventure with, and experience a fantastic story. That's what I think The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is an essential Nintendo game everyone should add to their collection. Thanks for inviting me to this amazing collab, John. This was a lot of fun to work on, and I really hope I could inspire someone to buy this incredible game. Alright, don't forget to subscribe to Chicken Fillets, and I'll see you around.
Hello everyone, my name is Veggie or Cozy Veggie here on YouTube, and I want to thank John for allowing me to be a part of this collab. So when I was brought to the question of what is an essential Nintendo game to play that everyone should have the opportunity to play and experience, I definitely thought of the Switch. To me, the Nintendo Switch is by far one of my favorite consoles / handhelds of all time, and it was the console that got me into gaming again and fall in love with gaming as a whole. But when it comes to the catalog, which is massive, one game in particular that I definitely had to recommend without a shadow of a doubt is Fire Emblem Three Houses. So if you're not familiar with Fire Emblem Three Houses, a brief synopsis of the story is Set in the fantasy land of Foldland, the game follows a mercenary turned professor who must choose one of the 3 houses at the Officers' Academy, each representing a different nation. As the protagonist teaches and guides students, a political intrigue, battles, and a mysterious force known as the Flame Emperor unfold. Choices impact the story, leading to multiple branching paths and diverse character relationships. So what I love about this game is, again, the branching paths of the different 3 houses, as well as being able to really get to know the characters. The lore of the game is really amazing, and the setting of Foldland is absolutely a must-have that I think everyone should experience. It's definitely a Switch game that should be in your catalog. If not, add that onto your Christmas wish list. But again, it's a really amazing, awesome game that I had many fond memories, and I've replayed it so many times. The replayability of this game is immense. Instead of just the 3 routes, there is additional DLC and of course a secret route that you should definitely tap into. This is definitely a must-have for me of a Nintendo game that you should definitely have in your catalog. Again, thank you so much, John, for having me.
Hello, you glorious gamers. I'm Chatterstats, and I have been invited here to dive into Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Sky. Let me thank the master chef of this video, Chicken Fillets, for having me on board. Now, this game was released in 2009? Has it really been that long? Good. Existential revelations aside, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Sky is a game I think everyone should play. It has a lovely pixel art style, a stellar soundtrack, and a touching story. Do I think everyone would like it? Of course not. It's a mystery dungeon game, which means gameplay is focused on repeatedly diving into constantly changing, randomly generated dungeons to complete various objectives. This type of game is rather divisive because of it, as some can find the constant dungeon diving tedious. Others love it, however. The game starts with you taking a quiz that determines what Pokemon you are, based on your personality, which I always found fun. Unless I want a specific Pokemon. Why won't you give it to me? You play as a Pokemon in this game, in a world where there seems to be only Pokemon. No sign of humanity. All the characters are Pokemon. From that quiz, you embark on an adventure that honestly surprised me, especially from a Pokemon game. I may have been young when I first played it, but even now, it still manages to elicit emotions from me. Now, there are many Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games, so you might ask, why is this one? Well, it is honestly my favorite in just about every way. From the story, definitely the story, to the music, gameplay, and art style. It's also the last Pokemon Mystery Dungeon game to use the pixel art style before it went 3D. Explorers of Sky can be considered the definitive edition of the Explorers games. There is Explorers of Time and Explorers of Darkness, but Sky adds new content and features. While I know this game is not for everyone, I ask that you give it a chance. If it clicks with you, you might just have found something special. And that is really all I want.
Hi, I'm Miller from Miller's Game Room. Thank you to Chicken Fillets for inviting me onto his channel for this collaboration today. My essential pick for a Nintendo game you must play is Baten Kaitos, Eternal Wings and the Lost Ocean for the Nintendo GameCube. To me, there are 3 main reasons why this game is essential. The first one is its captivating world, which is really unique. Because it's set above the clouds with this amazing backstory, it really builds the kind of world you can only really build together in video games. You've got the various island kingdoms, all the characters from each island you can interact with. Every area just has this beautiful immersive art style that has aged really well, especially in the HD remaster. Oh man, it's a really good story as well. It's incredible. The second reason kind of ties on from the first one, and this relates to the Magnus cards. It basically gamifies Magnus cards into a mechanic, and where everything is cards. So healing items are cards, weapons are cards, essential items like stagnant water as well. That's a card you can absorb and use as well. You can pick up things from the world and use them in events. It's really cool. And as a battle system itself, some people don't really like it. It does have its flaws. It was a reason why some people back in the day dropped it, even before considering card battle systems are not everyone's cup of tea. The HD Remaster, which is a version I played, polishes it up nicely and makes it a lot more fun and easy to skip things that are really wearing you down. I find it a ton of fun. The third thing is how Baten Kaitos symbolises the relationship between Nintendo, Monolith Soft, and its former parent company, well, aside from like 4%, Bandai Namco. Baten Kaitos was one of the first collaborations Monolith Soft did with Bandai Namco, as well as another developer, Crescendo. And even though they were great games, they were critically acclaimed, sold poorly. This theme continued throughout their relationship throughout the mid-2000s. It's one reason why Nintendo would eventually later step in to buy Monolith Soft, because the team wanted to be bought and they found it really difficult to work under Bandai Namco. Xenosaga had to be cut short, and Baten Kaitos 3 was also cancelled. Nintendo published Baten Kaitos Origins in Japan and North America. We never got it in Europe. Baten Kaitos is a piece of Monolith Soft's history that can't be forgotten, because you can experience a Xenoblade-like story in a self-contained experience. And now you can see how it plays out with the modern Xenoblade games, which I'm sure other people in this video are going to be talking about, because they're also amazing and essential. Monolith Soft nowadays have such a close relationship with Nintendo. Even after being acquired, it's not just a simple acquisition, it was a case of Monolith Soft being allowed to make whatever they want as long as they help out make some of Nintendo's games. And if you've played games like Zelda Breath of the Wild, Animal Crossing New Horizons, or even Splatoon, they help make those games as good as they are. And Nintendo and Monolith Soft would not be what they are without it. And that's one reason why playing Baten Kaitos is an essential title, because it literally made history. You can play the games on the Switch now. North America didn't get a physical copy, but everywhere else did. Anyway, thank you so much for having me on, John, and I'm going to pass on to the next person.
Thanks for having me on, Chicken Fillets. Now, for those of you who know me and my channel, you'll know that I'm not the biggest Nintendo guy, though I do have some history with the brand. The Nintendo game I feel everyone needs to play is actually incredibly retro, so with the closure of the DS eShop, you might have some difficulty playing my choice in an official capacity, that being Pokemon Yellow version. Now I bet some of you are wondering why I choose this Game Boy title over some of the latter entries in this now almost 30-year-old franchise. God, I'm old. The reason I choose Pokemon Yellow over some of the other entries like Crystal, Sapphire, or some of the newer games is because this was the definitive way to play Generation 1 if we exclude the remakes under the Fire Red and Leaf Green nomenclature. I have absolutely no experience with those versions of Generation 1, so I can't comment on those ones at all. Also, if I'm being honest, I'm not that big a fan of the direction of modern Pokemon. It feels way too handholdy, at least from my time with Ultra Moon. I haven't played any of the Switch entries, as I don't have one. However, I do have great memories with Pokemon Yellow. I had previously played Blue version and loved that. Also, I was in the right age group when Pokemon was getting popular. I was never one of the cool kids, but Pokemon was almost a unifying force in my class. We all played it. I also love the fact you could get all of the Kanto starters in this version because Game Freak had changed the game scenario up to more closely resemble the anime. For whatever reason, this made the game feel more entertaining to me. Also, let's face it, starting with Pikachu was pretty cool, as you only had an encounter rate of 5% for Red and Blue, meaning it was quite a rarity to run across one in Red and Blue. Another reason I liked it was because having your Pikachu following you around added some much needed character to a game that already had some. This is actually something I wish they'd incorporated into more Pokemon games. Game Freak did include this feature in the remakes of Gold and Silver, which are actually my all-time favorite Pokemon games. The reason Gold and Silver are my favorite games is because you got access to both Johto and Kanto, while also getting lots of cool new Pokemon, plus all of the quality of life improvements. I didn't pick those games though, as they're still universally loved and remembered. Pokemon Yellow, on the other hand, has been basically forgotten for whatever reason, which is a bit disappointing. I really wish this game was more readily available in this day and age. To be honest, I feel like Yellow is the first time Pokemon found its footing as an RPG. It wasn't too easy, nor was it too handholdy. Plus, it was an incredibly fun experience all around. Honestly, you can jump into the Pokemon games at almost any point, but if you want to experience the mainline games, I would say Yellow is one of the better ones if you want to see the roots of the series. Plus, you can relive the dreams of most 90s kids by imitating Ash Ketchum, since it's so easy to recreate his roster from that era in this game. Thanks for having me on, Chicken Fillets. I can't wait to see what some of the other contributors picked for this collaboration. So until next time, guys, keep blazing that trail.
Now, before I got my Nintendo Switch, well, Nintendo games weren't essential to me. However, once I finally got my hands on a Nintendo Switch, this viewpoint definitely changed. But there was one game which got me to get a Nintendo Switch, what made me want a Nintendo Switch. And that game is Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Now, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is definitely an essential pick for your Nintendo Switch and a Nintendo game that you should play. But why is this an essential game to play? Why? Let me tell you from my experience on why this game drew me to Nintendo. When I first seen the trailer for this game, I was outstanded by the cel-shaded graphics, the way that the combat looked. Everything stood out to me, and especially riding on the back of these massive titans, these worlds built on the back of monsters. It looked amazing and was ticking every right box. When I did get my hands on this game, I am no joking, I have loved every second being in this world, following the travels of Rex and Pyra. It is unreal running around these fields on the back of these monsters, these titans, going to villages which have been built on these creatures. The atmosphere, the lore of this world is just amazing. The colourful cast of characters as well, the likes of Rex, Pyra, Nia, etc. They are brilliant protagonists and I loved my journey with them. The combat system, this was different to me compared to what I'd been used to with the likes of turn-based combat and action-based combat. This had a different combat system, a different feel from any JRPG that I had played previous, and it had me hooked once I was able to figure out the system itself. The twists and turns in this story I didn't see coming from a mile off, and when some of these plot points hit, wow, I was absolutely astounded. My jaw dropped so many times, I just did not know what was coming, and I still get goosebumps when I revisit this game, which I do quite often. The story of Rex and Pyra trying to get to Elysium to find the birthplace of humanity is just amazing from start to finish, with all the bits in between. Also, you know me that I love my video game music, but this has one of the best JRPG soundtracks out there. It's an essential Nintendo game because it is a world that you can get lost in. And if it weren't for Xenoblade Chronicles 2, let's be fair, I wouldn't be a Nintendo Switch player. It's just amazing. This game is essential to me, and I really do think it's essential to you. Now, thank you to all the content creators today who have been featured in this video, who have taken their time out to recommend an essential Nintendo game that, well, you should play. But what I want to know is, well, have we missed out any essential Nintendo games? Well, let us know in the comments down below, and please do me a favour and subscribe to their channels as well. I'm sure they would appreciate that. Now, if you like what you're seeing and hearing on this channel, well, what I would appreciate is if maybe liking, sharing and subscribing. And if you want to be kept up to date with everything Chicken Fillets, well, hit that notification bell. This has been Chicken Fillets, and until next time, tatty bye.